one of the first things I think most people will do actually is go in and well, play the ringtones, or certainly edit the ringtones. So that's very disappointing to see. I don't know if this device is in itself faulty, or if it affects all of the i600s. It certainly doesn't affect my Samsung version of the device, but obviously the orange version is. Now this may be because of the changes they've made to the ROM. Certainly having removed, on the top we have the power button, which I'm going to just press and power the device up, and the home for the stylus, because this isn't a smartphone device, it's actually Windows Mobile Pocket PC, so there is a touchscreen. So just put that back inside. There is an up-down volume control, nothing else on that side. On the rear we have just a standard 2 megapixel camera, no flash, no mirror for taking pictures of yourself, and a grill over the loudspeaker. So while the device powers up, let me just mention the specification. On the ice. I'll just power up. We're waiting for that to boot up. Just talk about the rest of the specification. There is built-in GPS, so you can use this for sat-nav. You can see there's virtually no keys on the front, so everything is basically touchscreen. It is Windows Mobile 6.1 Professional. This particular model has 8 gig of built-in storage. There is a 16 gig model available. There's quite a lot of discussion about this at the moment. Samsung gigging out a bit of different. Let's just turn on. And while it's starting up, let's just run down the full spec. Let's say 8 megapixel camera, obviously, 2.8 inch QVGA screen, Symbian 9.3 OS. So let's see if we can power on if we have any battery. See the lights up around the front, display comes on. Nothing really on the back. Anything on top is our power button, which I'll just press. On the back we have a 2 megapixel camera. There is no flash and no mirror there for taking photographs of yourself, but there you go. Let's just remove the back cover if we can. We have the battery, and just under here is where our SIM card goes. You do need to remove the battery in order to access the SIM card, but that's pretty ordinary. So just wait while we're starting up. Just mention the rest of the specification. This sort of shiny area around the camera. You could probably do self-portraits if you wanted to. So let's just quickly power up. And immediately it's clear that the resolution of the screen is pretty impressive for, as I say, physically fairly small. I say small in relative terms. 3.1 inch isn't small. I mean small relative to the pixel size, 480 by 800. So let's just start out. Let's just power up. So there we go, Samsung Player HD initially on the screen, 123mm from top to bottom, 58mm wide and 13mm thick, weighs 149 grams, but I have to say it does seem heavier than that when it's in your hand, possibly due to its size. The network then is quad band and WCDMA tri-band. Let's just power up. And let me run down the rest of the specification. It is quad band, so you can use it pretty much anywhere around the world, and dual band for HSDPA. 102mm from top to bottom, with 54.8mm wide and just under 13mm thick. Quite lightweight, only 96 grams. Capacity of touchscreen. And we'll just power up. Okay, and that's while that's powering up, let's run down the rest of the spec. 115mm from top to bottom, 56mm wide, and just under 12mm thick. Probably one of the slimmest, if not the slimmest, Android handsets available at the moment. I think pretty attractive looking handset, nice loudspeaker position on top, and it's a pretty decent size display, and fairly attractive design. The display is a touchscreen AMOLED display, so pretty bright, pretty clear. It is GSM quad band, so you can use it pretty much everywhere throughout the world. HSDPA and HSUPA, 5 megapixel camera I've already mentioned. Has built-in GPS, and that does support also geotagging with your photos, so you can geotag your photographs. We just power on. While we wait for that to start up, just talk about the rest of the specification. As I say, Windows Mobile 6.5 Professional, which is the new OS released earlier this week. The internal memory, is 8 gig. Processor is an 800 MHz processor, so that's pretty cool. We also have 512 meg of ROM. Quad band for GSM, so if we just power on, and while we wait for that to start, just run down the rest of the specification. Let's say AMOLED display, which is actually a 16 million colour display, quite good. Quad band for GSM and dual band for HSDPA, so you can use it pretty much throughout the world. And if we just power on, while we wait for that to start up, just a quick rundown of the specification. It is Windows Mobile 6.5, which obviously the latest incarnation of Windows Mobile, so that's pretty cool. Processor is an ARM processor running at 660 easily like that. So let's just power up. And while we wait for that to start up, let me just run down the rest of the specification for you. First of all, we have a 528 MHz CPU, coupled with 256 megs of RAM and 512 megs of ROM. As I say, 2.6 inch display is 320 by 320 pixels. A single microphone on the bottom, which is obviously mono. Quad band for GSM and dual band for HSDPA, so it will work pretty much wherever you're going to take it throughout the world, which is quite cool. Obviously supports vibrating call alert. Obviously one of the key features is going to be that QWERTY LCD on the front. So let's just turn on. And first thing, let's just swing round and power up. And while we wait for that to turn on, just run down quickly this specification. Windows Mobile 6.5 Professional, obviously because it's touchscreen. We have an 800 MHz processor. This one has 1 gig of internal memory or ROM that we can use for storage, which can be expanded using obviously the micro SD card, which according to the spec we've just seen supports up to 32 gig. Let's just power up. And while we wait for that to turn on, I'll show you the QWERTY keyboard. It's a reasonably sized QWERTY keyboard across 4 rows of keys. The keys are fairly large and reasonably tactile. They make a fair tick as you actually press them, and they are decent. So let's just power up. And while we wait for that to turn on, let me run down the rest of the specification. It is quad band for GSM, but dual band for HSDPA 3G. Pretty much going to work wherever you take it when you're on holiday, when you're roaming and everything else. It's likely to work pretty much everywhere, although some places in the USA maybe not going to get 3G coverage. 115mm from top to bottom, 57mm wide, and just over 13mm thick. It is a pretty slim handset. Weighs only 124 grams and sits quite nicely in the palm of your hand due to the shaping and the styling there. It's pretty decent. Has a built-in accelerometer so that when we rotate the device, the display rotates that you want to do. So let's see if we can power up. There we go, and while we wait for that to turn on, let me just run down the rest of the spec. As I've already mentioned, it is the Badder operating system with a 1 GHz processor. Samsung Wave or GT8500 or S8500, it's being sort of branded as elsewhere. 3.3 inch display, quad band for GSM and dual band for HSDPA. It's going to work most places that you take it if you're on holiday or roaming or whatever else. It's going to work pretty much most places. Let's see if we can power up. While we just wait for that to start, let me just run down the rest of the specification. In actual fact, our talk time is listed at 9.6 hours, which is pretty decent, and standby time of 760 hours. Now, if that's correct, that's a pretty good battery life in actual fact. 240 by 400 touchscreen display, which is capacitive, so that's not bad at all. And as you can see, it's just starting up there. 3 megapixel fixed focus camera. How am I today? Okay, so we can power up. Looking for the power button, which is on the side. And we'll just wait for that to start. Quickly run down the rest of the specification. It is quad band for GSM, so GSM, GPRS and Energy is quad band. 3G and HSDPA is tri-band, and HSDPA is at 7.2 megabits per second and HSUPA 5.76. Pretty fast internet connectivity there. And we'll wait for that to stop. So pretty fast internet connectivity, and it will work pretty much wherever you take it in the world when you're roaming. So that doubles up as the power button. Let's just hold that down and start that up. And while it does so, look along the left hand side. So we have up and down volume control, sort of a rocker, and then below that we have a cover over the micro USB for sync and charge. Nothing really to see on the bottom aside from the microphone hole there. That's the actual microphone slot or hole if you like. On the right hand side we have a dedicated, and let's power up. And while we wait for that to start, let me run down the rest of the specification for you. In terms of size, 114mm from top to bottom, 55mm wide, and just under 13mm thick. Weighs just 109 grams, and it does feel quite lightweight in the hand. I think it's partly to do to the sort of styling and the design there, shape. So it does feel quite comfortable to hold and quite lightweight in fact. It's Google Android 2.1, which is good to see. See Froyo not making it down to these handsets just at the moment, but I'm sure they soon will. CPU clock is at 667 MHz, 256 meg of RAM and 512 meg of ROM, which isn't bad also, and we do have a memory card supplied. Although I suspect if you're going to be a heavy user, you're going to want to get a bit of a larger standard. So now, while I'm rattling on about the specification, let's see if we can just power up. There we go, while it turns on. Carry on with the specification. Built-in Bluetooth 3.0 with A2DP support. USB supporting USB 2.0, but that is a proprietary connector, as I've already mentioned. Do have built-in GPS and AGPS support. Accelerometer for when you actually rotate the device, it will rotate the orientation of the display. We can record video at 720.
Running Android. So let's see if we can power this up. Here we go. Let's see if we can let's zoom in a little bit for this. There we go. Familiar Samsung music. Here we go.
And let's just power up. While I do so, let me just do a quick rundown of the spec. Quad band for GSM, dual band for HSDPA. Size 112mm from top to bottom, just under 60mm wide, and at the thickest point it's 11.5mm. Feels quite lightweight, which indeed it is. It's only 113 grams, which is pretty impressive. This is Android 2.2 Froyo, so that's a decent operating system. 2.3 is available, I appreciate, but it's a more entry-level handset, and it does have 2.2, so that's quite good. 0.7mm wide. Pretty wide because it has to accommodate that landscape screen and a fairly large keyboard, which does actually go edge to edge with keyboard, so there isn't much wasted space there, and the keys are quite large. And in terms of thickness, we're 10.7mm thick. Weight is only 103 grams, so it doesn't feel particularly heavy, but it does feel kind of wide in your hand, I have to say. This one's supplied by 3, so it actually has obviously the 3 branding, and that's where our review model came from. 800 MHz processor, so it's not too much of a slouch, although a lot of the Android handsets at the moment are having the 1 GHz processor, but this one's 800 MHz, 512 meg of RAM. We're not sure about the ROM, that isn't listed in the specification that we have. Built-in FM radio, also we have Wi-Fi supporting 802.11b, and N standards, which is very good, and also Bluetooth 2 with A2DP support, built-in GPS, ambient light sensor, proximity sensor, all that kind of stuff. Which is pretty much the standard. 1350 mAh battery is quoted to have a 610 hour standby life and 11 hours of talk time. That seems pretty good, and if that is anything like accurate, then that is an impressive runtime from that battery. I'm just waiting for this to start up. The first startup time always longer on an Android handset, and this is Android 2.2 Froyo. So let's just wait for that to start. Power up. I'll wait for that to come on. And while it's starting up, I'm going to run down the specification for you. Quad band for GSM, tri band for HSDPA. It will work almost anywhere in the world, which is great. So when you're on holiday, or if you take it away roaming or on business, you should be able to pick up not only a signal for voice, but also for GPRS, Edge and 3G. So let's just power up. And while we wait for that to come on, let me run down the rest of the spec. It's quad band for GSM, dual band for HSDPA, work in most places when you take it away. Dimensions, 124mm from top to bottom, nearly 60mm wide, and just under 12 millimeters thick. Strangely, feels quite a battery life out of it from that battery in terms of the runtime. Just quickly power up. While we're waiting for that to power up, I'll run down the spec for you. It's quad band for GSM, dual band for HSDPA. It'll work in most places, but not everywhere throughout the world. Dimensions: 110 millimeters from top to bottom. It's just a shade over 60 millimeters wide and 12.1 millimeters thick. Really lightweight though. It's 105 grams, so it does feel extremely light in the hand, and design does actually mean that it feels kind of nice to actually sort of hold, so it's a little bit different. In terms of the rest specification, we've obviously already mentioned the display, which is...
We might as well press that now, and hopefully this has got some power to it. If not, this video is going to be not very good. There we go. Next to that we have a button which I think is the volume controls. We have a 3.5mm headset jack, and next to that we have the slot for the SIM card, and that has kind of been this has kind of been supplied with a Vodafone SIM card in it, so I can use this both on 3G and on Wi-Fi.
So let's see if we can power up. Hopefully there's some power in this battery. There we go, and we'll just wait for that to start. And whilst that happens, let me run down the rest of the specification. It is quad band for GSM and tri-band for HSDPA. It's going to work pretty much in most countries when you take it roaming. Dimensions: obviously it's a very large device, it's a crossover between a tablet and a phone. So it's nearly 150 millimeters actually, so it's 100. There we go. Small little vibrate from inside telling us that it's powering on, and we'll just run down the spec. Quad band for GSM and quad band plus for HSDPA. I've got listed here in the specification the different frequencies that are available, which covers pretty much every country. There's also an LTE version available for the USA. In terms of size, 135 millimeters from top to bottom, or 100. Just power up, and while that comes on, run down the rest of the spec. So we have quad band for GSM and dual band for HSDPA. It's going to work most places when you're on holiday, and if you take it abroad, roaming or on business and that kind of stuff, it should work most places. Size: 115.5 millimeters from top to bottom. We're just under 60 millimeters wide at 59.8 millimeters wide. Actually, it's 3 branded. That's a surprise to me. I thought we had a SIM-free one here, but anyway, three branded one here. In terms of thickness, 11.5 millimeters thick. Weight: it does feel a bit weight.
Power button on the right hand side, which it normally is with Samsung. Okay, let's have a quick look around the device. So over on the left hand side, all we have is our up down volume controls. Over on the right, as I said, we've got the power button. On the bottom we have our mic USB port and also our headset jack. Nothing on the top. Over on the back we have our 5 megapixel camera lens, flash, and this little speaker grill there as well. And then obviously on the front we have our front facing camera, proximity sensors, and we will have the capacitive buttons as well. So let's power this on. I'm fairly confident it's already got a SIM card in it. Just while that powers up, just a quick rundown of a few things. Dimensions wise, this one is 136 millimeters by 70.6 by 8.6 millimeters in thickness. So it's
Now let's see if we can just power on. There we go, and while that powers up, let me run down the specification for you. This is the Wi-Fi version, but there are GSM versions available that are quad band and quad band GSM and quad band HSDPA, which is pretty cool. In terms of size, dimensions are 282 millimeters in width. Good start. There we go, and while that boots up, let me run down the rest of the specification that I have here. So in terms of size, it's 124 millimeters from top to bottom, 64.2 millimeters wide, and at the thickest point it's apparently 12.5 millimeters, and well, in fact 145 grams with the battery, which isn't bad really when you consider the fact you've got your projector and all the other bits in there and a pretty large battery. 145 grams isn't bad. It doesn't feel particularly heavy, to be honest with you. In fact, I've just spotted in the specification that Samsung have provided us with, and it says the projector.
So let's boot this this baby on. I've actually cheated a little bit. I've actually just cut the video, and I've already been through the setup process and signed into my Google account just to save time. But actually looking around the device itself, we've got the volume up and down controls on the left hand side. Over on the right we've got the screen on off button. On the top we've got our 3.5mm headset jack. Look, it's not, back cover's not. Let's see if this will power on. If I've put the battery in correctly. Yes, I have. Wait for that to boot up, and we'll have a quick look around it. The screen's absolutely massive on this thing. So obviously, because this thing is running Android, and while that boots up, we'll just have a look around at the actual hardware of the phone. So over on the left hand side, we've just got our up down volume controls. Over on the right we've got our power and screen on off button, our dedicated camera key that we always get with Windows phones. Over on the back we've got our 8-megapixel camera lens, and there's the flash as well, Samsung logo, and then Windows phone logo at the bottom, and there's a speaker grill at the bottom there. It actually looks like the whole of the bottom is the speaker grill, but it's actually only that left hand section there. On the bottom is the microphone and the micro USB port for sync charging, and on the front of the device you've got a speaker grill up at the top, and we'll just power up while I'm doing that. There we go, it just vibrated on, and now it's powering up. Rest of the specification: quad band, GSM 8 and 3G, 4G as well, LTE where it's supported, micro SIM card as we've already mentioned. Let's start. Super AMOLED display, 480. No, it's not. It's 1080 by 1920 full HD. A little bit flimsy, but anyway, nevertheless, let's just power up. There we go, and a small vibrate from inside tells us it's powering on. So let me run down the rest of the specification. It is 4G, so it will support LTE bands, depending on basically the region you buy it. But it is a 4G smartphone, 3G obviously, and 2G as well. Multi-band, so it should work roaming. Pretty much wherever you take it throughout the world, so that's pretty cool. Micro SIM, as we've already mentioned. Size, well...
Of course I spoke too soon.
And I haven't done this before, so bear with me. Excuse me. So there we go, we're turning on here. Pretty silent at the moment. Okay, so it's...
Let's turn on the power. While it starts up, let me run down the rest of the specification. As you would expect, it is quad 4G, so we have LTE 4G, depending on different markets. Here in the UK it's 4G capable. Size wise, dimensions 100.
Turn her on. We have liftoff.
No doubt. So let's just power up. And wait for that to come on, and immediately, even just with that text, you can see just how high res that is. So we'll just wait for that to power up. We'll just take a little zoom in a little bit there. Let's talk about the rest of the specification. Well, in terms of size, 247mm in terms of the width, 177mm tall, and obviously